All right, welcome. My name is Jerry Cavazuto from godislovetruthlife.com or godislovetruthfreedoms.com because a life without freedom is not a life worth living. And today I have my amazing guest, Brandon, from the How to Become the True Media course with Mark Passio. How's it going?
Going well. How are you today?
Good. And how do I pronounce your last name? I forgot to ask you
It's
when I
Sipes.
Sipes.
Sipes. Yep.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, how did you get into natural law, Mark Passio's work, etc.?
Yeah. So basically at the time I was working in a meat locker. I was a meat cutter for 21 years actually. And I was into different other philosophers like Ram Dass, Alan Watts. I was listening to some Terence McKenna and stuff. And then a young guy I was training how to actually become a meat cutter. He had come in and I would talk to him about the stuff I was listening to and everything. And he was like, "Have you ever heard of natural law?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I got a friend that him and his parents like they swear by this stuff and they drink different kind of waters, like follow all these different diets and all this stuff and." They turned me onto it and I listened to it a lot. So he passed it along to me and I started listening to more and more of it and just became, yeah, just became inspired to keep listening.
I find it like sort of achingly poetic that you discovered his work doing, working with meat. Like, what was that process like for you? Like hearing about natural law and then doing that. Like, what was that like that time?
Well, that time, the reason I was listening to that stuff is because I was seeking out natural ways to heal. So, yeah, I was messed up as when I was young. I was into like a bunch of partying and doing drugs and drinking and spending a lot of time alone. I became distant from everybody. Became kind of like a closet junkie, I guess. It
Mm.
wasn't setting right with me, and I knew deep in my soul I was like something needs to change, and I didn't know how to do it, so I just started researching natural ways to heal, and along with
Awesome.
that just came like these philosophers just kind of popped up in my life and I started like listening to them, especially a lot of Alan Watts, like his voice and just the way he presented really made me feel comfortable. So I would listen to that in the evenings when I was getting out of all that and and then I would go to work and have my headphones on and be cutting meat and listening to this stuff and when I got into Mark's work, I just started was like I just knew what I was doing wasn't setting well, and I started to realize what I was doing. I was contributing to suffering, and I was doing it for the fake money, And even though there was a kill floor where I was working, I mean, it was a meat locker. Like they brought them in on certain days and killed.
Wow.
Like I remember like being going into this place, and they'd say, "Hey, we would spend our coffee breaks on the kill floor." And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was pretty brutal, and I would just see how they would force these animals like into corners and with a 22 long rifle shoot them in the head, sometimes miss. They'd lay there and suffer. I seen what they did to the pigs and hearing those screams and stuff like that, and it just didn't sit right to me. And I would tell myself, well, you never go to the kill floor. You're not on the kill floor. But the further I went in with myself, I was like, yeah, but you're still contributing to the suffering. Like you need to find ways to get out of this. And I eventually did. I started a little service business, like just doing landscaping and yard cleanups and stuff like that, and eventually made my way out of it.
Dude, I'm like tearing up.
I tell you, like, my
Wow.
thoughts were, I was like, well, maybe I could open a food truck, and I
Mm.
was like, I want to call this food truck Morbid Meats. I wanted to have a haunted house themed food truck, like with a theme of like my menu relating to the theme of the haunted house and food truck and all that. But the way I work is like I like to work. I like to get it done, put a lot of stuff out there. But I realized if I did this food truck, a lot of things were gonna have to die. So I was like, this ain't the right route to go either. So I didn't want to make money off of the death of things, if that makes any
Oh,
things.
wow.
So I
That's
was like,
quotable.
yeah, I was like, I just didn't feel right because I felt like if I went in to do this food truck, like I was gonna go all in, like, and there was gonna be a lot of life loss. So I just didn't want to contribute to that.
Oh, wow. Hearing about your journey sort of just as a reminder, like our interior sort of like if we don't really know ourselves and like that can be expressed outwardly, right? In our actions and hearing about, your personal sort of addiction, recovery journey and then how that also translated to, right action and moving out of this occupation is, yeah, just those parallels. I'm seeing those parallels.
Well, and one thing I noticed as being a meat cutter, I started when I was in 2000 and I was 18 years old. I actually started not even knowing I was going to be a meat cutter. I started at Sam's Club. They said, "Have you ever worked in the meat department?" I said, "No." They're like, "We're going to hire you to put the truck away that comes in." And I was like, okay. And I got in there, I was doing that. And then I started learning in the grocery stores, if you wanted to make the money, that's where it was. It was to be a meat cutter. I said, sign me up.
Wow.
I'm here to make the money. And the one thing I found in common, no matter where I went, because after that I went to Giant. I was a meat manager for 10 years. They went to prepackaged meat, but I always looked at cutting meat as an art because I displayed it like that. They got rid of the meat cutters, so that's when I went to work at the slaughterhouse. I was like, you ain't gonna run out of meat to cut here, and I can still do my passion, which is my art. And then once I got out of there, I went to the this place called the Common Market. It was more where they just only sold organic meats and stuff. Like it was more friendlier. It came across as um, more humane ways of cutting meat and the meat that they got in. But the one thing I noticed in common with all the places that the meat cutters were miserable. Anywhere I went, that environment, people
Wow.
were always so miserable. A lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of
Wow.
depression, lots of anger. And then I put it all together. I was like, I get it. We're surrounding ourselves by death every day. So I felt like death was like and seeking into all our souls and making us wet this way and causing a lot of our feelings, especially like being able to have pick at whatever you want to take home at night to eat. It wasn't nothing to be like, well, I'm cutting this steak, this is a nice 2-inch looking ribeye, let me take that home tonight, and that'll go good with a good 6 pack of beer, and just adding all that into myself also. I didn't realize like I was that was harming me as bad as it was and creating a lot of the feelings I was getting. So, but yeah, I noticed that anywhere I went, it was bad. The attitudes were real bad, especially in the meat locker. And I would watch the guys that would come up from the kill floor that no emotions on their face, slamming
Wow.
doors behind them. A guy actually, I didn't see this happen, but I mean, it was confirmed by a lot of people that it happened. They killed a lamb down there or a goat one day, and the process didn't go as good. So they took a chain and just like whipped it in its head till it died. And I was like, wow. I was like, this isn't for me. This definitely isn't for me. I could feel that.
I'm literally getting chills right now.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps and it's like 80 degrees out.
I hear you. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that, but
No, I this
that's
needs to
really
be
what happened.
we need to shine light in these dark corners, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I would get all the overtime I could too, because like again, before I found out what mon I was, what the money was, like I was like, let me get all the overtime I can. You sure you need me to stay later? Work an extra shift. I'll come to work on Saturdays too, you know, and then that was interfering with the home life. Just my attitude and my outlook on things, you know. Definitely. And then on top of it, the thing was, you know, you're around a bunch of meat cutters and kind of this good old boy environment too. When you're in a meat locker, everybody hunts and fishes and stuff. So that was the thing to do after
Wow.
work would be
Oh my gosh.
go get in the tree stand. Let's go kill us a deer.
Oh shit.
And
Right. Makes sense.
even in that mindset, I didn't feel right about doing that. And that's one thing I'm really trying to give back to is find ways to make up for my past mistakes of doing that because I have killed not humans or anything, but you know, killing deer and like fishing and stuff like that. I never saw life like the way I see it now after being awoken up more. And I still got a lot more awakening to do. I do. But I'm definitely don't do those things no more. I don't participate in things that just ain't moral. You know,
Oof. Oh,
I
oh.
don't do that. I don't.
Ooh, yeah. Like, dude, you're just like, keep going. Wow.
Yeah, I don't I won't hunt. I won't help my friend. My one good friend is a meat cutter. He has his own deer shop. Like I'm like, man, I don't want to contribute to that kind of stuff no more. I don't want my hands in the blood. I no reason for me to contribute to that. So yeah, so instead of killing nature and going out there, and like I didn't do it to intentionally just for fun to go out and kill, but that was just even growing up, like that's what my family did. They went out and hunted. And
Right.
you know, so it just kind of led over to going hunting and cutting up your own deer, processing your own meat, catching your own fish, things like that. But I won't even fish no more. And that's the hard thing is that I got a little boy and my daughter when she was younger, like that's how we would spend quality time. Like, let's go fishing. And now I'm trying to
Yeah.
untrain their brain to be like, he's like, Dad, let's go fishing. And I'm like, you know what, man? I'm like, let's go by the river, but let's do something more impactful where we're gonna help the environment. And I try to explain to him like yeah, that's a smaller being, like it's not right to trick that being into suffering for our own pleasure. So I noticed there's a bunch of trash around here. Let's clean up this environment a little bit instead of to harm it more. Let's help nature thrive a little bit instead of harming it. So I'm trying to give back to hopefully make up for some of these mistakes.
Dude, like, I freaking love your turnaround story. And yeah, one of the reasons why I reached out to you was because of an after class conversation we were having, and you inspired me. Like I was like, whenever I go out to nature, yeah, why not just pick up trash? It's always there.
Yeah.
You're gonna find it.
That's one test. I feel like I don't know if it's a test or if it's just what it is. My consciousness is like what woke me up is like when it comes to this trash, like going I'm walking into a store or something and I see that Mountain Dew bottle or that McDonald's Big Mac box or whatever, that paper bag flowing across the parking lot, you know, and it catches my eye. It's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? The rest, everybody else is walking past it. What's the right thing to
Mm,
do? Go pick it up and put it where it's supposed to be.
yeah.
And doing that kind of stuff is actually inspired my decision making of buying things too. Like when I go to the store, like if I got the options, like I buy this bottle of ketchup or whatever, is I got the option. It's in a glass jar compared to the plastic bottle. I realized that even if I buy the plastic and I do everything on my end to put it in the trash can, it still might not end up where it's supposed to go. It still might blow out in the back of that trash truck. So I try to do. make decisions on what I buy and how it's where it's going to end up and how it's going to impact the environment also, instead of end up in the wrong place.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, like, just, yeah, conscious awareness, whether we're eating, whether we're throwing things away, just like just being conscious in general, in all our little actions throughout the day, throughout our lives. Yeah. What you just said reminded me, like, I was hanging out with one of my friends, and his town doesn't have garbage pickup.
Right.
And so I noticed him and his neighbors, they're very mindful of their trash because they're responsible for their own trash.
Yeah.
And that it's like whether it's a governmental authority or just, yeah, just a simple like sanitation pickup, like just taking responsibility for our actions, is what's important. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
That's the way I look at it, being responsible for my own actions.
Yeah.
What am I contributing to? And I'll tell you, if you want, what really got me into the whole trash thing was, um, getting out of the meat cutting. I didn't have my son one day. It was a cold, like, I actually remember around the time around here, I used to fish for trout. Trout season comes in early spring, and they'll do all their stocking. And I live pretty close to this trout stream, this park near my house, um, where they'll stock trouts, and it's for fishing. It's fishing for kids 16 and under only.
Wow.
So, I had, learned about psychedelics. When I was younger, I would eat mushrooms and things, but not for the right ideas. Like, I had a few bad trips after a while where I was like, "Oh, I ain't messing with these things again." But once I started, learning about natural healing, I started learning about the benefits. So I had this bag of mushrooms for a long time, and I was like, just trying to find the courage to eat them because I know where they'll take you. And
Yeah.
I wanted to do it alone. So I came
Okay.
home. It was like a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March, cold outside. And I was like, don't got my son. I'm alone. I said, I'm going to eat this bag of mushrooms. I think it was like an eighth, something like
Holy
that.
crap.
I mean, it was, I know the heroic dose is like 5 grams.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite five, but it was like an eighth, something like that. And I said, I'm going to go to town. I'm going to eat these things and we're going to get things straightened out in my mind. Well, I
Wow.
ate them and I was like, all right, probably take about 45 minutes for these things to kick in. Let me take a walk to the park. I'll put my hood up over my head. Nobody will see it's me. No, I'm tripping or anything. Let me
Yeah.
walk down to the park and see if they've stocked any trout yet. That was my intention. I was gonna go see because I was gonna take my little boy fishing if they did. Um, but once they started kicking in at the park, I wasn't looking. Something real strong came to me. The trout didn't stick out, but the things suffering around me did. I would look at the water and I would see like that foamy, like just nasty foamy water, and I was watching ducks like swim around it, like in this dirty water. And then I looked along the creek bank and everything, and up in the roots of the trees that really stuck out all the trash that was in the water. So it was intense, I'm starting to trip pretty hard, and that's what's sticking out. And
Yeah.
the one thing I noticed about all the trash that there wasn't no health food in there. There was nothing healthy of the trash. I noticed
Right.
it was nothing but liquor bottles, beer cans, fast food restaurant trash, McDonald's, Big Mac boxes, Whopper boxes, Mountain Dew
Instant
bottles.
instant gratification.
And it came to me really strong. It said, yeah, it said, this trash is what people trash their minds and body with that cause them to actions to do this kind of crap. Um, and it would not let it go. Like no matter where
Wow.
I would walk, like I was just trash was sticking out. So the trip went on. Um, you know, eventually ended, of course, and a couple, like the next day and a couple days later, after I was done, like even driving down the road, I would look along the highway and nothing but trash stuck out. It was, and I would pull up to a stop sign or a red light, and I would look at the storm drains, and I would look over, and I would say, "Damn, all that them things are all clogged up full of trash. They're going to go into our water supply." And then that inner feeling, that voice or whatever it was just like, "Yeah, now you're aware of that. What are you going to do about it?" Like, I'm thinking, "What am I going to
Mm,
do about it?" Like, it was just speaking out to me, like I
wow.
needed to say something to make people aware of this, and it didn't
Yeah.
matter of my ego or how I felt, that I needed to reach out and say something. And I'm not very technical with technology at all, but I guess this is kind of how it all started when it comes to this. Is I made a Facebook post. I put on my experience basically, about
Wow.
pollution, on how it affects wildlife and nature, and the decision making of when you're buying these things, like where it ends up and which, so on and so on. And then after getting further into Mark's work and hearing how to become the true media, I was like, maybe I could like create something with some content. Like, what if I got like a GoPro or something and went around and actually showed like live footage and like showed people like of these polluted areas, and me clean them up and
Wow.
give a little bit of research and stuff on that. So that's what I want to do with my creation, is build a
Yeah.
website like that, something like that, put it out there, let make people aware. Um,
Yeah, and then afterwards, if you like have pictures or shorts that you want me to include in the episode description, I can totally do that. But yeah, your trip and your and what it showed you and the journey, it was basically you were basically like shown natural law, right? Like we are the causes of the effects we're experiencing, you know?
Yeah, and that's when shit got real. It was like, man, it's like you don't need to be concentrating on hurting these fish. You need to clean this shit up, like, and tell people to, like, it's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, man, and then like the further I got and like listening to this stuff, it's like, yeah, it's like you're right. I don't have the right to be messing with these little beings and creatures and stuff. As harmless as it sounded, like I didn't realize how impactful it was. Yeah, so I just decided, like, all right, I ain't gonna do this no more. And then learning the diet and all that, then it was like, well, I guess if I'm eating this stuff, I'm still contributing to it, because the more I eat, the more killing that's got to be done by somebody's hands.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been working on that. I'm not perfect at it, but I go about 2 weeks, and the hard part is having my son, because he's young, and ever since being little, it was nothing, and I'm a single dad. So it was like, get off work, let's get these Tyson's chicken nuggets. That's what's for dinner tonight. I whip this up.
Right.
I'll make
Totally.
spaghetti. So now I'm trying to get him out of that mindset, but it's so hard when I'm sitting there cooking him dinner. Yeah, sometimes I take a bite of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
I
two
it's
bites.
hard. It's definitely hard. I uh, well, I'll just go there. So yeah, my co-parent likes to give my kids meat and I try not to. And we've had discussions where I'm like, if okay, can you at least I was telling my co-parent, can you at least like give the option like, do you want plant milk or cow milk? Do you want a chicken nugget or a plant nugget? And just like giving him options. That way he can be at least be aware and conscious of the choices instead of just like throwing things in front of him. But it's definitely hard, like, because you know, kids do have kind of limited palates and it's like and yeah, like you said, like you just want to throw something quick on the table. So it's definitely it's hard, conscious parenting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, now that I found that's going to be the hard challenge, is unwiring him too, but I got to unwire me the whole way, I guess, and really be that example, and I've really been trying hard to do that.
That's
Definitely.
beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think it's where and I've unfortunately let this be known in our small community, but like I have no problem with someone who, is eating meat but wants to change. Like I can work with that. But like if you're insisting that it's moral when it's not, that's where I'm kind of like, no, I'm gonna put my foot down on that.
Right?
Um, but yeah, like I think I'm wondering for you and your journey, like, do you think you'd be where you are now had you not been doing the actual acts of, like butchering and cutting? Like, because I think for a lot of people who eat meat, they're just seeing what's on the grocery sort of section, meat section. They're just seeing the prepackaged stuff. They're not seeing the process. They're not hearing the screams. They're not doing the work. And so they're very removed and they lie to themselves about that removal. Does that make
Right.
sense? Like,
Yeah. Do I think I would be where I'm at? No, I think for me to experience where I'm at now, I'm not proud of any of that. But then again, and not to make excuses, I wasn't aware back then.
right.
So I look at it this way. I had to go through what I had to go through to get to where I'm at now. But now I'm conscious enough to know that I gotta have courage and be brave and make those right decisions and not fall into those actions again. And I mean, I definitely don't have no intentions to ever doing anything like that again. But for some strange feeling, I do feel like I had to go through what I had to go through to learn what I to know now. You
Yeah.
know,
Um, so it sounds like mushrooms helped you. What other sort of psychedelic experiences or yeah, communal guides have you worked with?
mushrooms is definitely the one. I don't abuse mushrooms. I use the mushrooms. I use them. I do my ceremonies alone, um, which I would have never done stuff like that alone when I was younger. Like I said, it was all about the party back then. But I do it alone. I take it serious. I'm real strict with my diet 3 days before, my intentions. So
Yeah.
I usually like to do them around my birthday and at the beginning of the year, right before the beginning of the year, just to set the intentions for the next chapter of life and
Wow.
going into the new year. Um, I've used acid, that not like I've used mushrooms, that's helped me out a little, a good bit too, seen some things, but I tell you the one that really blasts you is the DMT. Um, yeah, that stuff is set you straight. Like, it's so hard to explain a trip, but I basically what that was, my experience was that with that was it was giving me a self-evaluation of myself. It was like going to the doctor's office and getting the checkup and then getting the results is what that laid on the table for me. I remember doing that and it man, it took me into this place like I was like in this waiting room and the doctor
Whoa.
came in and it was like okay and it was like this big scale, this meter that was like
Whoa.
over here's good, over here's bad, and there was like this big arrow in the middle and it was like right now in life, he goes, everything's kind of going good. The arrow went to the good side, but was kind of shaky. He goes, everything's okay. He goes, I want to remind you to never go back to bad. And then the arrow would go way over to the lowest meter of bad and give me these real intense feelings. Like if you go back, this is what it's going to feel like. Um, but at this moment, everything's good. The arrow would go, like, so
That's
basically
fuck.
encourage me not to fall off track because if I do, everything would be bad. And I realized uh, um, how serious that stuff is. I would sit on my floor. I would kind of set down on, put my back up against my couch, and I had a real small apartment at the time. I had, some dim lighting on, some cool lights and stuff, and I could see my bedroom, which was a couple feet away, and I had my computer chair in the bedroom, and I remember having a black sweatshirt thrown over top of the chair, and I was telling myself, I was like, man, I'm just tripping real hard. I was like, um, there's not a black you ever seen that video game Call of Duty? The guy on the front with like It looked
My
like,
brother plays that game. Yeah, I've heard of it.
okay, like the soldier, like all military guy looking thing.
Yeah,
Like I don't even play Call of Duty, but I'm telling you that
right.
guy stuck out. Um, he was sitting over there in the chair, like just kind of like this, like he was just like watching me from my bedroom, and I
Wow.
said that thing's fake. That's in my head. I said I'm gonna crawl over to it because I know that's my black sweatshirt over there. So I raised my butt up off the floor. I get to make that first crawl, and that thing just was like this. It didn't say anything, but it sent that signal. It was like, "Do you really want to come approach me right now? Like I'm real." So that was, and then after that trip, as the trip was going, when it left off, I felt the first air that I felt when I first came into this world. The
Whoa.
first when you're first born and you come out of the mother's womb, I had this real cold chill over my body, and it said this was the air that you felt when you first came here. This is the first experience to air and how your skin felt, and I kept that chill after even the trip was over for a few minutes, and that really stuck in my head. So I was always wondering, like,
Mm.
what did this guy symbolize? Like, what the hell was that guy? Why did I see him? That had to mean something. Um, Months later, I mean, it maybe even like a year later, I had a little stash of the DMT. I was like, I've always heard about doing this stuff in nature. And I'd gotten off work early one day, and I like to mountain bike a good bit. And I said, I had it in a vape pen, is how I had it. I said, I'm going to go out. It's a nice day. I'm going to go to a private spot along the river, and I'm going to go out where nobody can bother me. And I'm going to see what it's like to blast off in the middle of this river on this rock. And
Cool.
I did. So I went out there, and I mean, I took like three huge hits. You hold them in. Like if you want to break through, you gotta hold them things in like till you can't handle it no more, and then take more. Um. So
Yeah.
anyway, I hit it, and I looked up to the river left to me, and I saw that guy again. The
Wow.
same guy I seen in the computer chair.
Right.
So and I remember shutting my eyes and like taking it all in. And actually, I remember exactly when I did this. I did it last year before I took the True Media course because
Whoa.
I was like, I want to go into this course with my just a different mindset. Like, and I feel like DMT, psychedelics is just kind of like a rebirth. Like you can bring new
Mm.
things in, let old things go.
Yeah.
And even old Mark came across my head. It's like the dude you're playing with, man. He's like he's up there. He's up there with us. Like know your shit, basically. Like be ready. And then it said, open your eyes and look what I created. And I opened my eyes, and it looked like everything was like from Super Mario World. You know them little turtles that you got to jump on and
Yeah.
shoot the shells. Like all the rocks look like them, and like crawling up next to me. It was wild.
Whoa.
So anytime I need a good self-evaluation or a good reset, I always turn to that stuff for answers in a respectable way.
Yes. Um, what kind of energy did this Call of Duty figure have? Was it
The-
neutral, negative, positive, like
um Neutral. I didn't
neutral?
know how to read it. Actually, if you got a second, hold on. I'm gonna show you something.
Okay.
This so
Okay.
yeah, I didn't know how to read it. I honestly, it's blown my mind ever since. So this is the weird part, talk about synchronicities and stuff. So a couple months later, like in the slower time, like I do landscaping and stuff like that. So in the dead winter time, it'll get slow, and I'll go to this bookstore up by my house. So a couple months later, it was cold, rainy. I was like, let me go to the bookstore today. I pull this book called The Power of Myth, and I just I I flipped right to the page that day. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll show you a picture of this guy. I know people are gonna think I'm fucking crazy.
You know what? Fuck them.
But I'm just being straight up. Wait, that's what the hell I saw.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Going back to this scales that you saw
Oh,
reminds me.
sorry, not to
Oh, go ahead.
interrupt you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Go for it.
right there,
Whoa,
that's the dude I saw. Can you see it?
the stormtrooper.
That's something like I saw.
Oh,
Like
on the right, or
yeah,
Darth Vader.
the black, yeah, the Darth Vader looking
Oh
guy.
wow. Whoa.
That's what I saw.
Whoa.
So yeah, but anyway.
I've encountered a similar, somewhat initially menacing figure that was actually neutral, um, and was figure was portending my father's death, which actually ended up being accurate. Um, but yeah, the figure presented my dad with a birthday card, and then my dad died. It was like a dream. But the figure was had a hood, and I couldn't see its face, and it was dark, like um, but yeah, I think there are certain figures that we see, archetypal figures that may look or appear dark, but may not actually be, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't feel like any kind of bad vibes. It was definitely neutral.
Yeah.
And then anytime I go to do it now, I'm like, man, wonder if that guy's gone. Or is he here for a reason? Is he here because I got some stuff that I need to still work on? Um, but yeah,
Um, yeah, I want to go back to this idea, right, of like the scales. It kind of reminds me, I think it's in the like Egyptian Cometian traditions, like when you die, you are given like kind of scales and like of your like morality of your life and stuff, your choices. So I think that's interesting that you were like shown that. Have you read into that, those traditions, or is that why you dreamt or saw that? Or
no, but you saying
wow.
that now, I will. That
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm,
Well, you know what was weird talking about that now was on that trip when I was on the river. I told you I blasted off,
yeah.
and I saw it up the river again. When I was taking my hits, I kind of seen a scale again, but in a different way. Like on the Wheel of Fortune, I seen that game show, not the
Oh,
tarot card,
okay.
but you ever seen them spin the wheel and you'll see like the numbers and the arrow like go up, like to spin again or whatever, like
Right.
that big fat arrow pointing up. When I hit it, it was like, go ahead, do it again. You want to get to where you need to be. This is where you need to be. You need to hit it again. Up, 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 up. And it kept like you would see on like a at the casino or on a slot machine, you pull that and you keep seeing the repeated arrows going up. But I was too intimidated. I was like, man, I've seen all I need to see. I can't handle any more today. And I laid off of it. But there's different levels of DMT for sure. Like you can go as far as you want to go, but it definitely is some scary stuff to me. You got to build up some courage to do that.
Yeah, I the message I always get whenever I've done it is just like one of just like you need to chill. Like you're very anxious and neurotic about outcomes and you just need to be in the present moment. It's going to be okay. That's like the message that I always get. Because
Yeah.
I do stray a little bit towards anxiety, future thinking, and just like that reminder of like, but that's what I usually the message that I get, I guess. But I've, like I feel like I'm always doing the shadow work thing, right? Like,
Yeah. It makes you confront yourself. I feel like, um,
yeah.
I, I tell you, an intense way to really do it is to the peak on acid or mushrooms, man. Taking blast that stuff on it, then and then it's like, oh man, I got what I was asking for. Did I go too damn far this time? But
Yeah, historically, I haven't really had any bad trips, although I did recently have a tricky mushroom trip. But I kind of view everything as subconsciously an invitation for change, challenge, and growth, you know? Like even if
right,
it's quote unquote negative, like if I invited something like that towards me, it's because I there was a lesson there for me, you know, is what I'm as how I'm trying to conceive of things versus like that was bad or that was good, as in a trip, like more just like, well, what's the lesson here, you know?
yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah,
By the way, I think it's cool you went from cutting meat to being a landscaper. That's like so cool. And you're still using, I'm sure, similar tools, strategies of like cutting things, but like for almost like art in a way, right?
yeah. That's the thing. And I knew I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I actually quit during COVID.
Oh,
Is when I quit.
wow.
Um,
Wow.
Yeah, that's when I quit cutting meat when we were at the most demand. It was because a bunch of new management, they shut the restaurants down. It was during a time when they were like, if you have any symptoms, you got to take this much time off, and they still paid you. And I was
Whoa.
one of the dedicated ones. Like I didn't have no symptoms. Like I'm showing up, getting the overtime. And I was like one of the few that they had because everybody was taking advantage of like, oh, I'm sick, like even if they weren't, just to have that free time off. And I was training new people that came in, and I was just an assistant meat manager that time. They had fired the meat manager, and on top of that, they were bringing new management in from the restaurants because the restaurants were closed
Wow.
down. So it was people coming in that never even worked in a grocery store, let alone a meat department, because a meat department is its own world inside of a grocery store. You might work in a
Sure.
grocery store, but you're in your own world. So
Yeah.
I'm playing the
My brother's
role.
done it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing the role of trying to help fill in for their management need, and I have these new managers coming back with their checklist, like, "Hey, when you was off on Monday and Tuesday, so and so was 20 minutes late to work. How are you going to handle this?" And I'm like, "I don't know." They're like, and then they're at the same breath, they're like, "Are you teaching these guys how to cut meat?" So I'm supposed to write them up and teach them how to cut meat, and I just don't work like that. I always like get along well with the guys I'm working with. Like we have fun, joke, talk, so I don't feel right turning around and giving disciplinary action to them. So I had come back from a couple days off, and I greeted with the same crap like this happened. What are you going to do to handle it type of deal? And I just looked at the danger. I said, look, my stomach's starting to hurt. And he said, clock out, go home, goodbye. I said goodbye, walked out the doors, came home, laid back on the couch like shit. Like, what am I gonna do? Because I know that just did not end well. And I was like scrolling, I think, through my phone, and I was like, man, there's kids out here making money mowing grass and stuff. Like, plus, I've been wanting to get out of this for a long time anyway. Maybe I could go cut grass. So it started out with that. I was like just thinking of something temporary to hold me over till I found something else, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and then I found that that's also around the time when I was living by natural law and making better decisions and starting to care about my diet and what I was putting in me and starting to have more self care. I started with that, not having no idea, and it just started to take off. After I got a few yards of cutting grass, I was like, you know what? If what if I could power wash too? That I don't think that's harming the environment as long as I'm not using hazardous materials, because that's one thing in my job I refuse to do. I will not
Right.
use bleach on things. I'm not going to hurt the environment around me to um, to profit money.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Yeah.
use Roundup,
Oof.
pesticide sprays. I don't do things like I don't work like that. I refuse to.
Good on you.
Only thing I'll do to kill some weeds is I'll use some vinegar because it's a natural
Oh,
thing. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, a little bit of salt and vinegar
Wow.
is excellent. You might have to put it on an extra time. It's a natural weed killer, and it doesn't
Okay.
hurt none of the pets or wildlife around you. So,
Cool.
so I just found like when I started to align myself and actually live these ways and do the right things and put the right stuff out there, it naturally came. I thought of some services that figured it would be pretty easy to handle. I could provide like the power washing, mowing grass. I could trim your bushes. And then certain jobs just led on the other. Well, do you provide this? And I'd be like, no, I don't, but I guess I'm going to go buy the tool and learn how to do it and started doing it. And I was like, maybe I should get some business cards made and,
Wow. Cool.
hand those out to look more, professional or
I need
whatever.
to do that. Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing with that. So I went to Staples one morning and I told the girl, I was like, I need to make some business cards. And I said, she's like, okay. I was like, this is all the services I want to provide. And I said, yeah, I said, just put my name, I guess, at the top. And she's like, so Brandon Sipes services? I said, yeah. I said, Brandon Sipes services. I said, we'll just call it that. And that's been my name ever since. Now, the
Oh.
only thing I regret doing about that, now, man, I shouldn't have done the LLC because I don't like supporting them people.
Oh.
I did. I was just,
Sure.
I need to figure a way how to get out of that.
If you want, I can send you. I'm I've been interested in learning about equity, PMA, um, private membership association, just trying to get out of the jurisdiction of the government. Anyway, I can look for how to revoke an LLC. I'll make a note to send something to you
I
along that
appreciate
fact.
that.
Revoke LLC for Brandon. Yeah, because I agree. Like, just cutting the ties as much as possible, and just like, yeah, stopping the theft, the government theft of your labor.
Yeah, it was just something new to me. I was like, I wanted to be legit though when I went to do estimates on people's property. And,
Right.
so I thought at the time that was the right thing to do. Um,
Yeah.
but now I'm learning like I guess I shouldn't have done that. I would just much rather provide my services like on a handshake kind of deal
Yeah.
without all that extra crap. And
Yeah. I mean, if you ever are interested, like, you could potentially create like a private membership association where you're, and like, not use the word client, but your members can pay whatever monthly fee or for helping out their, you know what I mean? And that's how, because this is how rich people do it. Rich people have memberships, rich people have trusts, rich people, you know what I mean? This is how they keep their money.
yeah,
Um, so like, for us, whatever plebes, to learn these tricks of the trades so that we can get out of government, the more people know about this is, and like, I've heard the argument like, well, you're using, legalese to fight the legal system. Well, no, you're using the self-defense principle to say, I refuse to participate in your system. You have to, you're actually not using legalese. You're using alternate terms for their terms. So like, instead of saying corporation, you're saying membership association. You know what I mean? Like, you're redefining things. So it's actually kind of like a cool, it's almost like poetry. You had mentioned you like poetry. It's a little bit like poetry, actually, which I never
yeah.
thought I'd say.
No, I could see that. Yeah, I definitely want to. I mean, I don't even care to admit it. Like I found out when I got into the LLC too, it was like 300, I think the 300 some dollars a year. You got to pay them to have your LLC. And like, I was
Yeah.
like, I ain't sending y'all nothing. I guess we'll see I don't know what happens. But I, I think this year it's like, I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna go to the tax person. I mean,
Yeah, and I
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I
they
think
threaten you with all this stuff, but I mean, what are they really gonna do?
right.
I
And
don't
like
own a
oh,
home, so they ain't gonna take my home. That's why I rent.
yeah, I think there's ways like actually plug for Dustin Plattner's course. He's offering a course right now called Practical Anarchy Education, which is today Eastern Time, 7 p.m. if you want to join
Okay.
on Fridays. But yeah, he's just like teaching people what he's learned about equity and stuff. So I'm doing that, and I've just been also researching on my own too, because like, I don't know, I think it is part of the self defense principle to learn this stuff. But
Yeah, definitely. If not, you just continue the support. That's it.
yeah, but I think it's cool that like, yeah, going back to you, like this idea of leveraging your previous skills towards good, towards something, towards creating your landscaping. It's beauty. You're creating
Yeah.
art, you know?
You know, then it started messing with me. I start doing the landscaping, and I try to use all the be respectful and mindful of the nature and the if there's a bird's nest in a bush and that lady wants the bird's nest or that bush trimmed, I've always respectfully said, ma'am, you got a nest of birds in there at the moment. I won't charge you for that, but when they hatch, I happily come back and clean it up for you. No, don't use hazardous chemicals, none of that. But sometimes I feel bad though. Like I'll be sitting there digging stuff out, digging in the soil, and I'm like, am I destroying nature doing this? Am I hurting?
Mm,
Am I hurting in a different kind of way now by disrupting this life cycle that's going on beneath me? So,
well,
or cutting down this tree, like, do I have the right to cut
mm,
that tree down? But I mean, I don't
oh,
know.
dude, I feel you on what you're saying. Um, one thing that I've resolved to do, because like, even if you're vegan, like you're still eating plants, like, um, people where I am in Florida, that I'm getting connected with are working on like regenerative forest stuff. And
Right?
like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're taking from one area, you can give back in another in a different way. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
One thing, I got a young helper fresh out of high school started helping me, and I've been pretty influential on this young man too, man. I feel good. I've
Oh,
helped change him a lot. But we're taking now when we remove bushes and plants, we go replant them. He's got a big backyard,
oh,
so we can try to keep the life going. We just relocate it. You know what I mean? Instead of just throw it in the trailer and go to the landfill. So we're trying to save as much stuff as we can.
it's awesome. Yeah, like stuff like that. And, or just, yeah, like, you know, you can help out. You can create compost for a regenerative farm in your area or something like that,
Yeah,
or
definitely.
clippings or whatever. Yeah, so many cool ideas. I want to switch gears because you
Sure.
shared something interesting with me about your family history. You said your dad was a Mason. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. He was. I don't know if he was a 32 or a 33. I thought he was a 32, and I reached out to somebody about a week and a half ago. I was like, "What was my dad?" And they were like, "I believe he was a 33." Um, but he was either one of those. But yeah, being younger, my dad was into that stuff, and I had no idea what any of that stuff was. I know I grew up Baptist, is how I grew up.
Wow.
My mother and father separated. My dad always played the role of the controller, where he got custody of me, not for my well-being, but just to have that power over my mom. But he also worked construction work at the time, always on the road. So that would leave me to be staying with my grandmother and my grandfather, who were super religious. we went to church
Mm.
on Sundays. Um, and then sometimes the preacher was there during the week, like would come over, and it'd be like, all right,
Wow.
go outside and play. Old Mr. Reverend Spangler's coming over. So, yeah, so that kind of stuff. So religion was always just shoved down my throat. So my dad being a part of that, the only thing I remember was my grandmother would always be saying, "Man, tell my dad, you're gonna go to hell for that stuff." For being in the Masons and all that. So, but then living with my dad, well, eventually after my dad, after living with my grandmother, my dad did come, and I eventually go into living with him. So he would always have this Masonic stuff laying around the house, and I was always confused because in church you read the Bible, but there would be this big blue book called the Holy Bible that he had, but it just had the symbol on it, the geometry,
Right.
the G, the generative purpose, whatever, um, have that on it. So I was like, how's this the devil? Believing that the devil was a being and all that stuff back then,
Mm.
and how was it evil? Um, yeah, so I've always been very confused by that. Yeah, so he would make me practice with him as he was moving up in the lodge rank. I was like around in fifth grade at the time. And he had this little blue book he would have to memorize by heart. So I would kind of sit in the chair, hold the book, and then he would read the phrases. And if he would get stuck, I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, you're right here," and help him take back off. So, yeah, he was a past master of the lodge. I remember that, and I do remember. I mean, he had keys to the lodge. There'd be like reasons he would have to go in there, and I'd have to go with him. I would have to set on the outside of the doors while they had their meetings and stuff like that. And then some
Wow.
things I look up, I'm like, and research, like, I don't even think I was supposed to be sitting on the outside of the doors.
Wow. Who
So I
watched
don't
you? The Tyler or
no,
who
I would
watched
just
you when you
that myself. I would just sit outside and
Wow.
behind the doors of the what was going on.
Mm.
But I do remember seeing there was like a bunch of blue in there. I don't remember if the floor was checkerboard back then, any of
Mm.
that. He was a member of the Shriners and the Tall Cedars, Scottish Rite, um,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, but then growing up, he was like, I remember he even found a school to put me in my middle school where the teacher, or not the teacher, I'm sorry, the principal of the school was an Eastern Star, which is
Whoa.
the ladies Masonic
Yeah.
organization. So I was going to that, and then he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna enroll you in this DMLA." And I never knew what DMLA was. Until these last few years, until the more I find out about Masons, I'm like, well, what was he talking about DMLA? And I look it up, and I basically, I guess it was indoctrination to become a Mason, starting you off young. I think you have to be like 11 years old or something. I could be wrong saying that
Mm.
about the age,
Interesting.
but on those notes and stuff. But he was very involved with the lodge. He was I remember one of his proudest things that he was one of the youngest past masters of the lodge. He'd
Mm.
always be like, "Boy, you know why I got those symbols on the back of my truck?" He goes, or on his car. He'd be like, have all his Masonic um, emblems that them stick-on buttons or whatever people put on the cars back in the day.
Yeah.
He'd
They
be
still
like,
do.
ain't a cop or nobody got to mess with me. And he goes, and let me tell you something. He's like, you ever have any trouble, you just tell him your father's a Mason, and you'll be fine.
He's not
that
wrong.
but that was his thing.
Yeah.
When I do remember at one point, uh, I get in a little bit of trouble when I was younger, and I had to go to court. And he'd say, "Don't worry about it. The judge is a brother. The judge is a brother." And whether that was pulling me out of something when I was younger or not, I don't know.
Did your
But
case get dismissed?
I got out of trouble.
Wow.
Yeah, but apparently he had ties in with that kind of stuff.
So we send our kid to a Waldorf school, and I noticed in the car drop off pickup line, we have some parents that are part of the lodge system. You can
Yeah,
see on their cars.
yeah, they
Yeah.
put them symbols, and that's when I started following Mark Passio's work. You get up there, start getting into podcast in the 30s, and he starts talking about that. That's when it really, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, damn, my dad was a part of that. I don't speak to my
Mm,
father anymore. We're not on speaking terms. Um, but it took me back, and then that's what really kept me driving to move forward. I was like, damn, like just that him opening me up to that world and explaining everything the way he did, just it made me realize a lot of things, and his actions also. So
as your dad moved up in the launch system, did his personality change? What were his morals like? Like, was there any sort of like, yeah, transformation or anything that you saw growing up in him?
I saw my dad. He would really he spent as he moved up, he spent a lot of time because I remember he'd work all day and have to come home like I got to go to the lodge. Like I raised
Wow.
myself like staying home a lot when I was real
Oh,
young doing that.
mm,
So
mm.
he spent a lot of time doing that. And then when, like I said, if that the lodge wasn't going on, then it was something with the tall cedars or the Shriners or something going on with that. But he was always a man of like respect. Um,
Mm,
Demanded a lot of respect. He
mm.
gave it. Um, he could be liked by a lot of people, like come across friendly, but he was an aggressive man. He was
Wow.
red, like hands on aggressive. This man was a violent man.
Oh no.
Yeah, I terrified my dad my whole life. I tried to as I got older. He opened up a business. He had a burger joint that he opened up, sold subs, burgers, crab cakes, and stuff like that. And he was working for the government also, doing water and sewer and stuff. But anyway, got out of that, opened up his own business. And even as I got older, I would try to like reconnect with him because it was my dad. And
Yeah.
my way of spending time with him would be like, even though I was working at the meat locker Monday through Saturday, I would go in on
Wow.
Sundays and work with him. And he'd start me off. He'd be like, "Boy, you ain't no different than anybody else. Start you out at minimum wage." But I didn't really care. I mean, the money helped, but I was like, "Well, this is a way to connect with my pop." But now he would psychologically always like try to beat me down, like I just remember there was a girl there at the restaurant. Like he would be telling me one day, "Yeah, boy, one day you can take this over. We're gonna move away. This can all be yours." And then a couple minutes later, he's over there telling the girl that's renting from him in the same building that's working for him, his main person, like showing her the ropes how to take over. It was like always confusing the hell out of me. And and his solution to handle problems was with his fist. He just liked to fight and very, very aggressive. And that's why I don't speak to him anymore. Because me having a
Good for
child,
you.
I, I, I can't, there's just certain things I can't forgive. And the way that he would treat my mom, I look back like a lot of abuse that she went through. Um,
Oh.
and I remember, I guess, I don't know if he was talking about the Masons or what he was talking about then, but he would keep me away from my mom. It was through a court system. I would see her every other weekend. I was supposed to see her. I'm from Pennsylvania, but he had moved me to Maryland, had gotten remarried. And then when my time with my mom would come, he would be like, "You're not going to see him this weekend." And, keep me away from her and stuff like that. And when she would try to like buck up against him to get me, he would be like, "Bitch, don't make me send the guys in the black and the limousines to come get you. Like, don't walk to your car one morning and go to turn that key and end up on fire." And, you know, and he would play psychological games with my mom and stuff, just to I guess have that rulership and power, so she wouldn't do anything about it. So it kind of left me stranded. He's nuts, man.
Oh my gosh. I'm just I'm just feeling so much pain right now in what you went through, and I'm just
So yeah, I mean, if I'll
yeah.
go into it, I'll tell you this, and this is what I think led me to my self-destructive path was so I would need a babysitter right after school because when I went to live with
Yeah.
him, so I would go to the babysitter's house and I was catching the same thing there. I mean, she had I remember this little granddaughter that was younger than me that was allowed to physically like bite me until like the skin would break and
What
blood.
the fuck?
Like I wasn't allowed to defend myself, like anything. Like I had to go like do a lot of crap with the babysitter, man. I remember I would have to get dropped off early in the morning, go lay up on, you know, there was a little chair I remember I had to lay on, and it was by the door. And she would walk to the county market every morning, seemed to be her thing. And she'd just walk by with her knee and just knee me in the head. And, you know, she'd say, "Get up, Scandon." You know, my name's Brandon. So she'd be like, "Get up, Scandon. You're walking to the store with me." You know, things like that. And you know, if I wasn't worried back then about my grandmother and grandparents and family thinking Jesus was watching me every move I make, she had me thinking because she lived in town. It was kind of a rundown street, and she'd be like, "Oh, Red Eyes is gonna come get you." And Red Eyes, we would see this guy that was a homeless guy that always carried, I guess, his clothes in a black trash bag. So she would be
Gosh.
like, "If you don't listen, Red Eyes is gonna come get you, and he's gonna put you in that black bag, and he's gonna put you down in the basement and stuff like that." So I was having a bunch of fear installed in me when I was a young age, and then as I started to get into those teenage years and everything, like getting older, I started messing around with things, and I felt like drugs and stuff. I was like, "Well, this takes the pain away," you know. But then I went
Yeah.
down that road and I was like, well, shit, I'm feeling more depressed than I've ever been. Like, how do I get out of this? And then once I had two kids by two different moms, things wasn't working out. I was feeling really shitty and depressed, you know, going to work, cutting the meat, and I was like, man, if things don't change, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. Um, so I was like, I need to find something. I tried, like somebody was tired talking to me into going to the doctor. Maybe you need to get on medication. Um, so I tried that for a little bit, and that it was the same thing. It was like clozapam, like a Klonopin or something. I was like, it didn't feel right taking that, and then
Yeah.
I was at the verge of like I need to find myself or I'm gonna die. Like that's how I felt. So I found these natural ways and they've helped me out. I found this work, it's helped me out. So that's the path I've been on and the path I'm gonna continue to take.
Oh wow, dude. Your fucking like story is incredible. You transmuted so much darkness into
Yeah.
light. Good for you.
I'm having a hard like this technology stuff. Like I've always been intimidated by it just because I couldn't sit down and concentrate and ever learn because I was afraid of a distraction somewhere. You know, I mean, there's something always on my mind. So that's why I'm forcing myself with this technology stuff, man. I'm like, I've always felt like I was just so far behind in it, like I would never catch up. You know, so
Oh,
I'm like, all right, I'm gonna commit myself to something and try to stick with it and do it. And this is actually my second year taking this because the first year was what the first year I took this class, honestly, I hung in there for the first half of it, and then I got distracted, but I realized I needed a lot more self work. And that's what I did. I said, I'm not going to give up. So I re enrolled and I've stuck with it so far with everything.
Yay.
I'm going to continue, even if I don't understand this stuff, man. It's like the one thing that rings in my ear that Mark said, it's a life skills class.
Right.
Dedicating yourself to show up at the time, putting everything else to the side. Sounds like screw it. We'll start at life skills then.
Yeah. Mm, Going back to what you said about distractions, right? Like for myself, um, having had also a very physically abusive father and mother, uh, I was pretty much beaten from like age 3 to 19.
Right.
And that consistency of having my sympathetic nervous system constantly activated, it's it's been my life's work since then to undo all that programming. But like I think part of it is for PTSD for me anyways is like finding focus can be difficult in the beginning when you're
Oh,
healing
yeah.
from being in a state of fear
Yep.
for years during your neurologically sensitive development
Yeah.
eras, you know?
Yeah, and I never want to be the guy that's like blaming what I did on other
Right.
people and stuff. Like, oh, well, it's his fault that things are like this. Like, I'm accountable for my own actions. But when I'm
Absolutely.
truthful and I look back at that stuff, I'm like, this is really what happened, man. Like, wasn't no
Right.
way. It's like I couldn't do good in school because there was always a fight between my family. It's like I remember in my elementary school years, like changed schools in 1 year 3 times, being back between my mother,
Wow.
my between my I'm sorry, my dad going back to live with my grandmother and grandfather, then coming back to live with my dad. So, and then like I would catch shit from him because I wasn't doing good in school, but I couldn't do good in school and concentrate because I was like, what the hell's going on in my personal life?
Right.
So I've always had those anxieties. I've always had those worries. I understand where it's all coming from, but now at least I know how I can fix them, and that's basically what I've been doing with this work is I've been learning it and learning how to apply it to my life, so I don't affect nobody else's. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not trying to screw anybody else up. And then that's when it got deep with the meat and the animals and all that. It's like, well, I don't want to hurt them either.
Yeah, like, ugh. Do you ever feel like you were, hmm, I'll say this about myself, and I'm wondering if you feel the same way. Sometimes I feel like I chose this particular family to be born into to heal their lineage of trauma. Does that make sense?
I know exactly what you mean, honestly, and I actually got that feeling. Uh, yeah, it was around July. My birthday is July 21st. So like I
Beautiful
told you,
number.
I'll have yeah, I definitely play around with the numerology a little bit. I found I'm a life path number 3, which is cool. I get into all that.
Cool.
Um, so what you're talking about there is like I told you with the psychedelic medicines and the plant medicines, how I like to heal myself around my birthday and at the beginning of the year, like going into my next year of life and stuff like that. The last one of the last trips I went on was around my past birthday. I'm 42 now. I had ate some mushrooms, and during the peak, I was like, let me do the DMT, hit the DMT, and it took me. I opened my eyes and I looked down, and I have an old man's body. Um,
Whoa.
I'm like, and it spoke to me, and it started opening up about my father. It started being like, look, it's like. You were him, he is you. You're all the same people. This
Oh,
needs to be healed. Um, and it was sending me a message that I needed to, I guess, confront him again, um, for me to properly heal, to take the weight off of everything that happened, and for me to take the weight of off of me to be able to be light enough to rise where my spirit needed to go. Um, I needed to confront this issue in some kind of way and come to an understanding of not holding a grudge. And it's not that I hold a grudge; it's just I feel real uncomfortable around him.
oh,
I
well,
don't know.
understandable.
You know what I mean? Like anytime we go somewhere or talk, like he does, like he wears the symbolism all over him, sweatshirts, shirts, always got the Mason shit on it, the chain, the rings, and all of that. And it's just like I don't know what to do. I really don't.
Mm,
But I know what you're saying. And that said that and with that message, it was like, yeah, you're here to heal ancestral wounds. And this
yeah.
is one of the ways you got to go through it. And it's very uncomfortable.
Mm. Something that I found helpful in terms of going back to what you said about like not blaming anyone for, like, I don't blame my parents for what I went through, in that I just kind of view them like children. Like they may be in chronologically aged suits, but like what you just described, like this idea of like just a person putting on this regalia to hide who they really are. It's a very my parents included, like they hid behind certain reputations they built, you
Yep.
know, uh their intellect, their, you know, whatever culture, they hid behind, because they were like little scared children underneath all those masks. They didn't really want to be seen, so they kept putting these layers of protection. They thought it was protection, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I wondered, well, what put him in that mindset to make him actually do those things, thinking about how far back it goes and like,
Whoa.
you know what I mean? Like what was his traumas and
Mm.
yeah, is it my job to go awaken this and help the healing the whole way down, you know? Like
Mm.
I don't know, man, but something told me that's what I got to face this or something. Like face him and come to some kind of conclusion in order I guess to heal, and that would be pretty powerful, I think, if to if I was able to take what I've been through and to go and change, not saying I'm going to change him, but just to put that fire in him to awaken him to help him clear himself a little bit. I don't know, does that make any sense?
I mean, I think you're doing it just by being this beacon of light. You just are.
Well, thank you, I'm trying. Definitely trying.
Yeah, you're touching your children, you're touching this, you know, younger mentee that you work with, like you're helping the creatures you encounter, um, you're cleaning up trash, like
Yeah, yeah. Ever since doing this stuff, man, I used to be a person that would go. I felt like if I didn't have my kids on a Friday and Saturday night, or I would never be sitting alone. I'd be like, man, I need to go out, need to go out and get a few drinks, need to go do something. And then once I started learning about energy and how putting yourself in the wrong environment can actually draw your energy, I become a
yeah.
hermit. I became more of a loner. You know, like
Mm,
I don't go out and do those things anymore. They don't serve me. They're not gonna.
mm,
I'm not saying I don't ever go out and have a drink. I don't involve myself in the environments that I used to with the crowds that I used to. I want to make sure that I got the right energy when I go pick my son up the next day. Like I got full, like good energy he's gonna need for my attention and stuff like that. Like I'm thinking about him too, you know, and other people
Mm.
that I'm gonna connect myself around. I just don't want people drawing my energy from me.
I really respect that sentiment and also need to work on that. I find that as one grows in their light, darkness becomes more attracted to you. Do you find that to be the case as well sometimes?
What the more that you try to the more good you try to do, the more light you try to be, darkness finds ways to you more easier to distract you. Is
I
that what you
do
mean?
find that that contrast has become more clear.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was, and it's just also just my own awakening, right? Like before things were more gray, but now like I'm seeing more contrast, but also just trying to, I've been like thinking about the Kabbalah and everything also, and like this idea of like Satan as like a adversarial force or dark teacher to help us get back to the light, and lots of other traditions talk about this, but not to say there's definitely obviously actual good and actual evil, but I don't know where I'm going with this. I guess what I'm saying is uh, I'm finding like there's, yeah, I'm seeing things more clearly now than whereas everything else was more gray. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. Yeah, I definitely see things more clearly now than I used to see, but I can definitely tell that evil does try to mess with me. It does. It's trying to it's slick too. I tell you, man, like um getting into this course is a good example. Like I'm all head into it. I'm doing good. I'm doing my work every night. Um Then all of a sudden somebody new wants to come into your life, um, and distract you. Um, I don't know.
Yes.
I gotta watch it. I'm just gonna shut up. I'm gonna just watch my distractions.
Yes.
Somebody
I
all that might be like, okay, yeah, I want to go hang out with,
yeah,
yeah, distractions.
I agree. I'm at a point where similar to you, I find I have certain moments of like hermitage. Uh, I try to connect with people online that are like-minded, that understand natural law and stuff. Um, but yeah, recently I've been trying to like find people IRL in our community, and that's been helpful. But I think it'd be, I think it's even more helpful to connect with people that understand the mission and respect it. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to be friends with someone to have to explain, like, okay, I'm doing this thing. It takes up the majority of my time. I don't get paid for it, and I feel called to do it every day for the rest of my life. You
right.
get me?
Oh
And then
yeah.
they're like, why are you doing it? And I'm like, I can't. It would take it would take a really long. You would have to like
They don't
go on a
understand the
journey,
morality of it, I
right?
guess. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's crazy. I got one close friend I would consider a friend. I've met him. I've known him for 20 couple years now. I met him when I was cutting meat at Sam's Club back in 2000. So we've known each other since for 24 years, and we've
Wow.
worked at some of the same places throughout the years, cutting meat, been good buddies, hunted together, fished together, did all that stuff. When I started learning about this stuff, he's a full blown out Christian. I would
Whoa.
try to be explaining things to him, and he'd be like, "Brother, I'm just trying to get you to believe in Jesus Christ and going to heaven and the good Lord and all this." And I'm trying to teach him the natural law stuff and putting some of the philosophers on and some of Mark's work and stuff. He wouldn't budge. You know what budged him? Um, I was like, "Look," I was like, "You got to go on a trip with me." I said, one of the guys I'm telling you about, Mark Pazio, I said, he's having this event called Two Masks, Same Face. I said,
You brought him?
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. So this is what happened. He's all big hunting, like he's a good old boy. But anyway, I said that I started scratching the surface before this a little bit. Like he was starting to listen a little bit to what I was saying. I was like, look, if there's one place you got to go, I'm big into music. I go to concerts, like small town venues and stuff like that, like little clubs and stuff to see bands. And I've never been to anything like Mark, something like that before. And I was like, I didn't really want to go by myself. If I had to, I would, because I just don't know anybody else into this stuff. So I talked him into going. That morning, I go pick him up. It was a little chilly out that morning because it was at the end of October. He comes out to the truck. He's like, has this shirt on, his camouflage pants, and his shirt says, "I'd rather be bow hunting," a big old statue on the front. I'm like, oh, I was like, man, I said, without
You can
being
only
rude, I
laugh.
said, man, it's gonna be cold in there. I said, you better go get a shirt on, it's like a sweatshirt or something. And he goes, oh,
So
is it? It's
funny.
gonna be cold out there, up there. I was like, yeah. I said, the hall we're going in, it's probably gonna be a little chilly, man. You might want to go get a sweatshirt or something on, try to put it away in a nice way because I just
That's
didn't want
so
to be looked at
funny.
crazy going. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
That's so
So,
funny.
anyway, I talked him into going, and him still being a disbeliever and questioning everything. Like, because when we had breaks at the Two Mask, we'd go get something to eat or whatever. Well, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about this. And till the ride home, he's like, you know what? That made sense. I've always wondered about that, certain things. He goes, but I've never heard no one explain it that way. The next day, he's at podcast number one. And he's been listening to it, um, following it, and I've talked him out of I've helped him change his diet. Um, where he's not eating as much meat. He's still a meat cutter. He's trying to come out of the place he works and find a new job. But there's still a lot of battling going on in his head. He's like, well, he goes, I looked at this job. I'm going to go work for the government at the water plant. And I'm like, no, man, you don't want to do
Yeah.
that. And he's like, what's wrong with that? And I'm like, you don't want to work for
Um,
those people. You don't want to take their blood
yeah.
money, man. Like they're screwing everybody else off, for you to go get paid and stuff. And I try to explain that to him. He's like, well, don't the city need water? Like he tries to justify a lot of stuff for
Sure.
himself yet. But I was able to break some ice with him, and he's starting to become more and more awake, and um, he's finding out that it's challenging, but he's still definitely trying to hang on to some old habits and stuff, like the hunting. Like I'm trying to explain natural law to him. Like, man, I was like, with the hunting, I was like, in reality, you don't have the right to go out there and kill that animal. Like you don't have the right to take its life. You don't or
Yeah.
dominate over top of it. Well, I won't kill the bucks, since they're the producers of the, he comes up with all these things. I'll just kill the doe. And I'm like, well, then you're taking the fawn away from its mother, things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to help him get the whole way out of it. But I have
Hey, at least
inspired a
he's
few people.
that's great that he's on the journey though. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even get my ex-husband to he was just so fixated on the tone. And I was like, well, you got to start at episode 1.
Yeah, where he's explaining the brain and how the brain works and all that kind of stuff. To understand the brain structure. But yeah, so what I'm noticing is it is causing some problems in his family now. Like
Oh yeah.
when he comes home, He's like, I'm not going to eat this today. I'm going to have a smoothie. I'm going to eat this. I don't want to eat it. And now his wife's being like, what the kind of shit are you listening to? You know, what are
Oh
you
yeah.
listening to, that conspiracy stuff? Or sorry for stumbling on my words,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, and I said, look, and I find his wife being really, God, I hope she don't watch this, but, um, find her being, like really nagging and not being, and I try to explain unity to him. Like when true love is in unity, I said, when you're both firing on the same cylinder, when you're both on the same page, you're supporting each other and, all that. But I was like, if she is like nagging you and not helping support you and doing the complete opposite, you're not in unity. I said, he's like, oh, brother, I'm worried I'm going to get a divorce. I'm like, well, this will be one positive thing. You won't be married to the state anymore because that's all you're
Yes.
married to. I was like, so
Correct.
there's blessings in this, man. Like
Yeah.
I said, it ain't going to be easy. Anybody that's trying to blow smoke up your ass and give you the rainbows about spirituality has never been through huge, a pure spiritual awakening, because it's not like that, because you got to face a bunch of stuff you don't want to face and go through a bunch of things that you don't really want to, and the answers are uncomfortable that you try don't want to hear.
I think this is why it's so hard to get the workout, because it's like it's forcing people to look at themselves and they don't want to.
They
And
don't
they
want to
don't
say I'm part of
and
the
they
problem.
correct. And but like once you get on the other side of it, it's so fucking freeing.
It is.
Like if we I'm like y'all, if you stick through it, it's really fucking amazing, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this in the wake of going through this divorce process, going through a complete friendship restructuring, going through involuntary estrangement from my family, like going through financial transition, all of it. And it's like once it was not easy, but it's
Right.
also awesome.
Yeah.
It's a tough sell.
It is. It is. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear you got to suffer.
Yeah.
Suffering
Well,
sucks. But
right.
there's reward in it. I've found that out, man. The benefit of just doing the right thing,
Yeah.
just having that free thought in your mind is a reward in its own. I feel like just having your just having that conscience free, like instead of waking up being like, man, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have ate that. That's one of the ways I battle with my diet
Mm.
lately is like I'll be on a good track, I'll be doing good for a week, over a week, ain't ate no meat. I've been very light with it, very cautious of what I eat. And I ain't gonna lie, the other night, like I felt myself, I, I was like, around 8 o'clock came, I'm like, man, I'm starving, but I've been doing so good on my diet. And I start scrolling, like looking at places like, well, what can I eat that's healthy? And I'm like,
Okay.
in reality, I was like, if you can just tough this out for a few more hours, you're going to wake up tomorrow, have a smoothie. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning much more thankful in your mind than going and ordering a bunch of trash and putting in you. Your body's going to heal better overnight. So I'm always like coaching myself and telling myself that kind of stuff
Mm, that's great.
to reap to
Yeah,
you got to yeah, to reap the benefit, man. You got to do that stuff, I guess.
for sure. And also, like, I mean, it's an addiction. Meat, carnism, it's an addiction. It's hard. Like with
Yeah.
any addiction, it's hard to kick. And it's okay to be gradual. It's okay to relapse and try again and do better next time, um, you know?
Oh yeah, I've definitely relapsed a little bit, but and then I'll get hard on myself, and then I'll be like, man, you know what? You not might not be where you want to be, but at least you're not where you used to be. Um,
Right.
you know, like I said, I'll get up to like 2 weeks, and different foods that I supplement myself with. for, to take the place of meat, like I've researched that kind of stuff. Um, Mushrooms are not the psychedelic ones, but different strands of good organic mushrooms are really good that can give you the
Yeah.
protein. Eggs, your free aim. I guess that's not
Yeah.
really
I
harming
mean,
anything, is it?
I
Eggs,
don't know. I mean, I think where I live, because so I will say this, some eggs are not fertilized,
right?
that they're laid, but it's just hard to tell which ones are. So that's why I don't bother. But I do see your point. Yeah. And honestly, whatever. Like I think I would rather people be vegetarian than not. I mean, that's at least a step forward. So, you know.
Yeah, and then yeah, I eat a lot of almonds and pistachios, things like that. And actually, I don't know his name. I forget his name, and I feel bad about this. But in the Telegram, how to become the true media thing, I was talking about juicing and like wanting to get into that world. And another
Yeah.
student recommended me some options, like
Great.
for like amino acids,
Well,
the right kind of protein, because the market out there with that kind of stuff, it can be very confusing. Like, all right, well, what kind of stuff do I buy that I know I'm not getting no junk or no bull crap, or fillers and anything? Like, what's a legit company I can buy from to get the stuff I need that's sustainable to the earth? And my biggest thing is also, like I said, I don't want to buy these big plastic tubs that are gonna like end up at the bottom of the ocean in the landfills and in the ground. So
mm,
what's a product that I can get that's not going to cause that pollution and plus also benefit me? When he turned me on to this stuff called Puridyme, you ever hear of that?
no, how do you spell that?
Here, I'll show it to you real quick.
Okay.
Of it, but
Whoa.
it's sorry, I don't know how the camera's even looking at this stuff, but it's this stuff right here. It's
Okay.
it's pure plant protein, and then I take it with this the
Whoa.
amino acids, which are all balanced, clean sourced.
Okay.
Um, and
Cool.
he turned me on to another guy. His name's Dan McDonald, that teaches all the juicing and all that kind of stuff. So that's helped me out a lot.
Which
Put that
student was this?
ah, I don't even know. It was on Telegram.
Okay. Well, if you can
I can't
remember,
think it. Yeah, I honestly don't
because
get
I'd like
on
to
that.
have them on.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. If you got a sec, I'll look real quick. Let me look on the
It's
Telegram.
totally fine. Yeah, like I think it's great, to be mindful. And also like, I mean, we need protein, sure. I guess it depends on what your fitness goals are, but like unless
Uh,
you're like,
his
yeah,
name was
good.
Dave. His name was David Yigdale, and I hope I'm saying that right. But I don't
Okay.
mean. But yeah, that he was on the 2023 seminar chat. But he just interacting with him on there, a couple messages. He helped me really set my plant-based diet into effect with that
Cool. Yeah.
information. Yeah, so these platforms are very helpful that we have set up.
Yeah. Um, I think we're coming up on our time together, but I wanted to ask you one last question about parenting. How do you go about teaching natural law to the next generation? Like, what has your experience been like in that journey?
Um, you know what? I start everything out by telling people it starts with the diet. Once I learned that from Mark, like the key to the true spirituality is through the diet. Like when I heard him say, if I would have learned that a while back, it'd been a big game changer. So I always go back to that. Like teaching them, what are you putting in your body right now? And for where you source what you're putting in your body, what effect did that have on anything else, whether it be like carnivorism, uh, bunch of sugar drinks or food or stuff like that. Um, I don't quite know. Just try to teach them just how to respect nature and their surroundings, the well-being. That's one thing. Like my son watches me as an example. Like I'll be the first one, like I said, walking across that parking lot. There goes that bag. Like, look, go pick it up. This is the right thing to do. No matter, yeah, you're gonna sit there and like, oh man, I hope no one sees me doing this. I'm gonna look stupid or whatever. You know, your ego wants to get in the way. But letting that go and just doing what's right. Um, and yeah, but basically, mine's all through the diet. Like that's my biggest thing, teaching people to
Totally.
start off with the diet and not to make decisions that's going to harm the life around you, basically, or any other being. You don't want to violate, trespass, in any kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said, and I do agree. Like, so much harm or good can occur through the plate.
Yeah, yeah. Just being aware of what's going in, because what's going to go in is going to come out,
Yeah.
and it goes back to like that mirroring effect. Like the mirror is just a reflection of you of what you have put on the inside. It's only doing its job. So when
Correct.
so when you're looking back at yourself in that mirror, it's like, well, what have I put in to be able to look back at me of what I'm getting out?
Hmm. Yeah. I also like what you said about just like doing the right thing, not just talking about it, because it's like I I do both. I try to tell my 5-year-old what's right and wrong, but I don't think it's gonna impact as much unless I live it
Yeah.
as an example. Like what you
Yep.
said, like cleaning up trash, like, and also just like on small things, like just like not being emotionally reactive when I'm interacting with my co-parent,
Yeah,
and him
that's
and my
hard.
son seeing that, and I'm gaining trust with my son through being a non-reactive person.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. They got to definitely feel that comfort too, to be able to trust what you're telling them.
Right.
So, yeah, that's one thing I do personally with my son, or he's got a little neighbor boy. He comes over and hangs out a good bit. It's actually my helper's little brother.
Aw,
Yeah, so
how
I feel like
cute.
I've helped both of them out.
Hmm.
But whenever they're with me, I'm just laying it out there and then telling them like even when we're grocery shopping, the same thing. I'm like, look, you see how we have these options and like remember that trash we picked up out of the woods, if this would have been glass and not this thing of plastic, maybe this wouldn't have been here, things like that.
Right.
Well,
Totally.
but yep, that's about it.
Any last words that you'd like to share before we
No, thank you for having me on here.
Of
This is my
course.
first time ever being on something like this, so I felt like you have a great thing going, and it was a way for me to kind of break the ice and get on
You did
camera and
great.
share whatever I needed to share. Um, I appreciate the opportunity.
You are an incredible storyteller.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
feel like we barely scratched the surface today. So, yeah,
it's all good. Hey, it was fun. I was a little nervous. I was like,
you did
man,
awesome.
I was like, because I watched your stuff, I was like, man, these people talk for a long time. I hope I have enough stuff to talk about.
We went over. Usually I'm like 1:30, but yeah, we did good today.
Cool. Well, thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity. I appreciate it.
Of
And
course.
I'm going to
See
you
you.
continue to do the good work. I'll continue to.
Yay. See you in
Yep.
class.
All right. Have a good one, Jerry. See ya.